I am absolutely not supposed to tell you this, but Ripple is a government agency created 17 years before Bitcoin was even idealized by Satoshi's white paper, setting the foundation for XRP to take over the financial system. After spending months researching, I am ready to present you with factual evidences and undeniable proof that Ripple is not a private company. And absolutely nobody's talking about what I'm about to share with you. I'm staking my reputation on camera, and I am telling you, this is absolutely game changing. So let's get started. So I'm about to unveil a thread I wrote just today, and I want you to pay close attention on the details. Later on this video, I'm going to show you the documents that support everything I wrote on this thread. So let's get started. Ripple is a US government agency. So the truth behind Ripple, the INSA, and intelligence contractors, and why Ryan Fugger is the key. So let's get started. Ryan Fugger claims the name Ripple came from a Grateful Dead song, but the real story, it traces back to the US intelligence ties, secret trademarks, and a shell company from 1991. Ripple Communications was incorporated on March 21, 1991. And I want you to remember the name of this company because later on, we're going to actually draw the connections between this company, Brad Garlinghouse, and Ripple as we know today. So here is the registration for Ripple Communications. On screen, you can see the date of incorporation, 21 March 1991. And I want you to remember these two names. They are extremely important for this investigation. So we have number one, Lindsay Bowman, the president, and then we have Dixie Dougherty, an agent for Ripple Communications. And you can see that this trademark was passed on year after year until it became Ripple Services. This goes way beyond. If you check the bottom of this screen, you also see that Ryan Fugger is a registrant for Ripple Communications, the same Ryan Fugger that later on founded the Ripple as we know today. Ripple Labs owns that trademark. Now you can guess who used it to own the same trademark? Well, that's OpenCoin before becoming Ripple Labs. So they indeed changed how the Ripple was called. That seems an attempt to cut down any connections to Ripple Communications back in 1991. In 2025, the same year the INSA was reorganized, 3 domains went live under the same IP address: Ripple.com, Ripple Pay, and OpenCoin. Here you have Ripple Communications trademark details, trademark owner history, Ripple Labs, that's Ripple as we know today, and party name, it's OpenCoin. If you don't know, OpenCoin was the previous name for Ripple as we know today. Now, the first question that emerges, how did Ripple end up being with a trademark from 1991 from what seems to be a telecom company 17 years before the Bitcoin white paper? Now, let's talk about Suzanne Wilson Hackenberg. Since 2010, she held leadership roles at the INSA, that's a government agency, that's an intelligence agency from the United States. But where was she from September 2010 to October 2012? Well, she was indeed working at Ripple Communications. She leaves Ripple Communications in October 2012, just as Jed McCaleb buys Ripple.com and the Ripple Communications trademark. Then Ripple Communications simply disappears. And on screen, you can see Suzanne Wilson Hackenberg. She's a vice president of marketing for Ripple Communications, and she's the president of the INSA. The same people working for the intelligence agency are working for Ripple Communications that later on became Ripple as we know today. You also have Karen Nussel. She worked for Ripple Communications, the same company tied to the Fugger family and the early Ripple stock. She was listed as a key contact at the INSA. Well, if you are wondering what this means, I'm going to break this down in simple words. The INSA is Ripple Communications. They are the same entity, and I'm going to prove to you with factual documents. So stay tuned. Ripple Communications was registered by Lindsay Bowman and Dixie Dougherty in 1991, and they also registered Ripple Services in 2004. Now, why is Ripple Services relevant? Well, the 2004 Ripple Services application is masked by a CSC, a corporate agents use it to hide the true owners of the company. This same exact company gave birth to a new Ripple services, and can you guess who's the CEO? Brad Garlinghouse. So are you getting the connection so far? Brad Garlinghouse is the CEO of the branch originated out of Ripple Services, which is highly connected to Ripple Communications in 1991. Not highly connected, they are the same company. Ripple owns a bench of a company that existed 8 years before it was even founded. And then Daniel Doherty comes out as a government contractor, this individual that works for NT Concepts, a US intelligence contractor. He shares the same surname as Dixie Doherty, who incorporated Ripple Communications. He's working in government intelligence contracting today. NT Concepts is a well-known defense and intel contractor working directly with the NSA, the National Security Agency, which, if you remember well, David Schwartz, one of the 3 architects of the XRP ledger, is a contractor for the NSA. It just keeps getting better. Not surprisingly, his office is located near a dense hub of contractors near the Pentagon and the CIA. Doherty helped register Ripple Communications back in 1991, and another Doherty now works for a US intelligence contractor. XRP is a generational plan. In 2012, the same year Ripple Labs was registered, someone privately registered rippleservices.com, a domain matching the 2004 Ripple Services shell. The domain was registered just months before Ripple.com was transferred to Jed McCaleb, and OpenCoin filed for the Ripple Communications trademark. And then I ask you, if Ripple Services was just a forgotten entity from 2004, no one would even care about this domain. But someone cared enough in 2012, the exact same year Ripple Labs began, to register it privately using a non-privacy shield and then simply park it. And now pay close attention. This is the piece of evidence that changes absolutely everything. I have been looking for this during the last 2 years. I always knew Ripple Communications was highly connected to Ripple as we know today and XRP. However, I never had the final piece of the puzzle. And today I can finally say with concrete evidences, Ripple is a government agency. In 2007, a filing with the Ohio PUC shows Dixie Doherty as Regulatory Affairs for Ripple Services, Inc., listing box 6327, Incline Village, the same exact address tied to the 1991 Ripple Communications shell. This is the piece of evidence that uncovers Ripple Communications in 1991 is the exact same Ripple as we know today, and the proof is called Ripple Services, registered by the same person. In other words, Ripple Communications, the 1991 government agency, is the exact same Ripple as we know today, and the proof comes from Dixie Doherty. We can find her in both companies. She's even responsible for the branch called Ripple Services that was started in 2014, where Brad Garlinghouse is the CEO. I hope you can comprehend the magnitude of what I just uncovered. And if you made this to the end of this video, if you like this type of threads and discussions, this is not everything. I have a lot to uncover in my next video, so I want to send a special thanks if you made this to the end of this video. I'm going to see you guys in the next video. Thank you.